Today, it became clearer than ever Americans are fed up with an FBI that has been politically hijacked.
Let's bring in Arizona Republican Congressman Andy Biggs. Congressman, if the FBI was a business owned by the American taxpayer, which it actually is, it should be up right now for going out of business sale. But what are that's not an option, but what are the steps that you and other members of Congress are going to take to right this sinking ship?
Well, Dagan, I think there are a number of things. First of all, we can impose the Holman Rule, where you reorganize certain aspects of a department. Here, in this case, you could reorganize it right from the very top. That would be the Holman Rule. We could take care of, let them build a larger than Pentagon Taj Mahal new facility in Maryland for billions of dollars as a reward for basically surveilling and abusing the rights of American people. And the third thing you could do is you need to, within the budget bill, the appropriation bills, give some very specific directions and make adjustments to their revenue. And that's just the beginning of this thing. We have to go in this thing, and we have to keep having these hearings to expose to the American people just how far gone and politicized the FBI has become.
Congressman, with every question that's of real interest, the answer that we kept hearing was, well, there's an investigation going on. We can't talk about that right now. Repeatedly. Is that a strategy to simply insulate the FBI from actually having to answer for the things that are going on there right now?
Brian, yes, of course that is. And that's because he didn't want to answer these questions. A lot of the questions we were asking were very pointed, very direct. He didn't want to answer with pointed, direct answers. So he's going to say, yeah, we were under investigation, or I'm going to have to get back with you. How many times, it's like a boomerang, how many times has it got to keep coming back to us with information? And I think it was all to obfuscate and to deflect from the problems that they have. He didn't want to give us the real answers that the American people want to know.
Targeting Catholics, we'll brief you soon, but we're not going to let you talk to the agents who were involved in this. It's a violation of the very First Amendment of the Constitution. He revealed that the FBI gets banking records with no warrant, quote, all the time. And then when Congresswoman Lofgren asked, is the FBI buying location data about Americans from private businesses without a warrant, he was like, that's complicated. I'm going to have to get back to you on that. These are violation after violation of our rights, Congressman, and he acts like, oh, not a big deal.
Yeah, I was so dismayed. I expected him to have genuine, at least try to give a rationale for the abuses that are going on. But the reality is, and he knows it, and we know it, these banking institutions were providing with information. They were providing geodata location. I believe he has to know this. If he doesn't know this, then he would be incompetent, and I don't think he's incompetent. I think that this is the way they do business, and it basically harms the rights of America, and it has brought this massive amount of trust. There's this massive chasm of trust between the American people and the FBI. That's going to get even expanded as we go forward, because he's not giving us transparent answers. There is so much to be held accountable for. He's going to have to come clean. We need to probably bring him back sooner rather than later.
Stay right there, Congressman. House Republicans are declaring war on ESG, that's environmental, social, and governance.
Lawmakers vowing to expose the social investing requirements that are actually causing you to lose money. Fox Business's Hillary Vaughn is live at Capitol Hill with more.
Hi, Brian and Dagan. Well, House Republicans want to weed out ESG from the SEC and from your retirement. The chairman of the House Financial Services Committee, Patrick McHenry, today saying he wants to stop the SEC from moving forward with a requirement that would make companies submit burdensome climate disclosures assessing their climate impact. Republicans also want to stop climate activism from hijacking public markets and have retirement fund managers stop worrying about how green an investment is and instead focus on how much green that investment can make retirees.
Rather than focusing on sound financial regulation, the SEC has turned its attention towards non-material, environmental, social, and political issues. The everyday investors who rely on financial returns for their retirement savings bear the brunt of these consequences.
But Democrats on the committee are not distancing themselves from ESG. Instead, the top Democrat, Maxine Waters, telling me today she doesn't think that these ESG rules are handcuffing anyone's investments. Is it fair to strong-arm people to invest in something that might align with what Democrats want, but doesn't ultimately make more money for them in the long run?
Well, I think your questions are just unbelievable, because what do you mean by strong-arm? Who's strong-arming whom?
You're not giving them the option to opt out and not have their investments dictated by ESG.
You don't know what you're saying. There's no dictation in this at all. Evidently, you didn't do what I told you to do, and that's come into the hearing so you would know the facts.
But the fact is, President Biden vetoed a proposal that Congress passed that would make sure that ESG is not a factor when pension fund managers are investing this money for retirees. And a Democrat like Senator Joe Manchin called it completely infuriating that Biden vetoed that and said that this rule does just that. It prioritizes politics over retirees' returns. Dagan and Brian, back to you.
Right. Hillary is hijacking 401k money to pursue an ideological agenda of the left. Great work, always. Hillary Vaughn, thank you so much.
All right, let's bring back Congressman Andy Biggs. Congressman, you saw Congresswoman Maxine Waters responding to Hillary Vaughn, saying everyone will have the chance to participate. Listen to this.
It's inevitable that everyone is going to have to participate in dealing with the environmental crisis, social activity, and, of course, corporate governance. We have to do it in order to save this planet.
Okay, first of all, I'm so glad that you're doing hearings on this, because this issue drives me crazy. They are not doing any of this democratically. They're not doing it above board. They're trying to sneak these requirements in to your retirement. They're sneaking it into all of these federal agencies. It is a rot from the inside out. It will kill our economy if you let it grow. What do you hope to do about it?
Well, first I have to comment on Maxine Waters. When she says it's inevitable, everybody will have to do this, that it shows the lie to what she told Hillary when she said nobody's forcing anybody, nobody's strong-arming anybody. She's taking a very Orwellian, authoritarian approach. And so what Chairman McHenry is doing is taking these pieces of legislation, getting them to go forward. They will pass out of the House. Next, we have to get them to come out of the Senate, because you cannot make stakeholder capitalism overcome shareholder capitalism, because when that happens, people who've invested their entire retirement savings in whether they worked for a state or a business, they are at risk of losing the gains and proceeds they need to live out their lives. And so we have to continue to attack this legislatively, but I also think, again, we should be using the appropriations process as a leverage point against the SEC and for some of these ridiculous rules that they're trying to impose upon American investors.
Right, well, Larry Fink, it's not ESG anymore. What's he going to call it? FTH? Just because he's calling it something else doesn't mean it went away. It's all such a sham. Congressman, the Secret Service is set to brief Congress on its investigation into the cocaine that was found at the White House. What do you want to hear tomorrow? Because the story has changed multiple times since the discovery of the said cocaine.
You know, Dagan and Brian, I really want to hear the truth for a change, right? I would really like transparency. I'd like them to come out and say, yeah, we were able to get fingerprints off the bag. We know exactly who brought it in. Yeah, we have video evidence of within the White House. We know who it is. I don't anticipate actually hearing that. But when you say, what do I want to hear? I would like them to tell us that they know who this is. This is probably the most secure political and government facility that we have in the United States, maybe in the world. and they're telling us, yeah, we don't know who brought in that cocaine. That's absurd, and nobody on Capitol Hill believes that that's true.
If they say we don't know who it is and we're going to close the investigation, what can you do in response?
I will rent my clothing and put sackcloth and ashes on. That is so absurd and so far outside the realm of reality. We're going to have to conduct the investigation ourselves then, as members of Congress, not into, again, the White House, because they won't give us access, but into the investigators, because they should know, and I believe they do know.
Congressman Andy Biggs, great to see you. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. Thank you so much.